I do these intros, I guess I just start creating them. So anyway, welcome back everyone, Raven's back, which means it's time for another character tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to create a dynamically changeable makeup for any character, both in Blender and in Unreal Engine. To make things easier, I have prepared a complete master material pack for both platforms, so we will have everything prepared for you right out of the box. The only thing you will need to do is to create a few masks and that's it. You can download it from my Gumroad page, the link is in the description. It's completely free, but if you would like to support my work, any donation you can spare would be greatly appreciated. A quick recap for the ones that perhaps followed along with the tutorials from the beginning. So we already passed through modular setup, wrinkle systems, LODs, optimization, and last time we created her an armor with some complex physics, and that's where we left off. Nothing extreme has changed since then. The only thing you guys skipped is that she became full naked instead of the baked underwear. And I also created some gold outfit for her, for plot reasons, of course. It's just better fit for the tutorial, unlike the demonic destruction armor right now. So I had to redo some textures of mine along with the LOD textures and combine normals with my fancy new add-on, which if any of you don't know, you can download it for free as well from Gumroad, just like the master material pack. Speaking of master materials, let's jump right in to show you some quick overview. I start with Blender. So the way this will work, you will have multiple options on your material under custom properties. The naming will be directly identical with the Unreal version, and both of them work on the same logic. There will be a minor differences that comes from the fact that the two softwares shading works differently, but what you can set up in Blender, you can set up in Unreal, and it works both ways. And you will be able to turn on and off certain parts like the foundation, multiple type of blushes, add or remove them to your liking, tricolor eye makeup setup with a total control over roughness and metalness, and lipstick control. But this is still not a magic miracle button, since this is a master material, it still requires manual input from your side, and that manual work is the creation of masks. So in order for this to work, you will need to create masks for certain areas of your character. Unfortunately, I can't do that for you, but what I can do is to show you how to do them. I will show you now how to do it in Blender and in Substance Painter right away, but if you already know that, you can totally skip this part and jump to the next section where I show how to set up all this in Blender and in Unreal Engine. Okay, in Blender I just add a simple plane, go to shading and add a material to it. Split the screen, leave this on solid, set this to viewport shading. Go to texture paint and I add an image texture here. Give it a name and add the color, set the alpha to 0 and untick alpha here and hit new image. Connect this up and set this to non-color. Up here make sure you are in RGB, not HSV, and set the red value to 1. The rest should be 0 and paint a stroke here. And like that, we created the simplest form of mask. Now let's save that image. Make sure it's on RGB, 8-bit, PNG and non-color. Now I add here 2 RGB wheel, set some random color, and do some really basic masking logic with the mix color. Connect them up like so. And with the factor, we can control it which should be active, A or B. Pretty straightforward. And this is where the mask comes in. So if I plug this into the factor, we can see something, but it's hardly visible. So how about if I add a separate color? And now it's perfect. And that's because it's only sampling the red channel now that I just painted and ignores all the other channels. That doesn't have any value, therefore distorted the red value and made it way lighter than it actually was. As you can see, all the other channels has 0 value and this basic concept of a simple one channel mask. And this is, for example, what's needed for a lipstick mask, but more on that on the setup section. Now let's hide this and do another example. I do another plane, add the material, and change this to render, just to avoid confusion. I add 3 images, get a separate color for each like so, and a combine color, and sample only one channel for each like so, and connect it up. Same exact setup for the image like before, so no alpha, and here set the alpha value to 0. Do the same here as well. And I name them logically. Set all of them to non-color. Let's go to texture paint, set this to single image and look for your texture. Start with the red mask texture. Logically, we are going with full red here. You might ask, but why I didn't use just one single image, then paint it just like at the wrinkle tutorial? You can do that, but the thing is that I want to allow the channels of the mask this time to cross each other, unlike at the wrinkles. So they can coexist even if I paint through on them, because that's how makeup works. There are layers on top of each other. So let me show you what I mean. I just plug this here and paint full red on it. Now set the red to 0 and set the green to 1 and paint through it. At first glance it seems good. Let's use this separate color node to see what's truly happened. For that, I plug in the red, and now you can already see my point. You can see that the green paint totally stripped away the red value, which in this case is not what we want, because sometimes the layers above are just light strokes on top of the main layer at the makeup, and you actually want to keep the below parts visible. So let's erase all this. To erase parts, use full black paint. Now let's do this properly. I just select the red mask here and plug them back like so. And now I only paint with the red on the red mask. That's the first layer. Select the green mask texture here and set the green value all the way to 1 and 0 to the others. And let's paint something. We can already see from the preview material that something is different. Do the same on the blue, but this time the blue value to 1 and the others to 0. And let's paint. Now let's get another separate color and double check. And we can see all the masks are their own separate thing now. And even though they are crossing each other, there is no erasing or distortion happened. Now let's go ahead and save this image separately, like before RGB and non-color. Get a diffuse BSDF and connect it up like so. This is what our final texture will look like. Let's change this to cycles, GPU, and here select diffuse. Untick these two and add an image texture and create another image texture which will be our final RGB mask. Non-color and hit bake. Save it down. And let's test this with a masking logic. If you want to get to know the detailed logic of masking, check the wrinkle tutorial where I talk about it more in depth. So if I scrub through the channels, here we can see that all of them working great. Now let's top that with another color. And we can see it's working as well. Let's add the final channel as well and connect it up like so. And we can see all three of them is working flawlessly. And that's how you do an RGB mask. There is also another method which I do not recommend, but that only involves one texture. So same thing at the texture, I plug in to diffuse and let's go to texture paint, change this to black and let's paint with red. Change this to green and we already know we can't just paint on it because it will remove the red part. But if we change this to screen instead of mix and paint, we can see that it's worked well. Let's add another with blue, check it and it works. But you would have to switch back and forth between screen and mix if you want to paint outside of the red area, ideally. So it can be quite annoying. But I will show you, like for example, I paint here with a mix and here with the screen. Here with screen for green channel and mix with green channel. Same with the red. You know what? This will be the screen. I will save this down now. And now if I switch it to the previous example, we can see it worked. But I wouldn't really recommend this method since it can cause distortion and the values will be off in cases. Additionally, there are free extensions as well like this one for similar layering system, just like in Substance, but for Blender. With this, you can probably achieve the same, but I won't get into this one now. Just use the first two methods and you will be good to go. That's about it. Let's see this in Substance Painter. So here I am in the original project file. Unfortunately, I can't show you the naked version. So Substance is just way better in masking, obviously it's designed that way. And if you use it smart, like creating separate folders and layers in the beginning for the complete eye makeup and for example for the lipstick, you already have your mask ready, you perhaps just don't know it yet. You can see that I already have that folder here labeled as makeup. If I open it up, you can see I have 3 visible materials and I can easily toggle the whole makeup on and off here. Or I can freely remove or modify them separately inside the folder, which means that I already have the exact mask that I need for this specific eye makeup. Your eye makeup mask doesn't have to consist of 3 separate masks to make the master material work. It can be 1 or 2 as well, but obviously your customization will be limited to your specific mask area only. And this serves as a perfect example for an RGB mask to utilize the full tricolor option in the master material in Blender or in Unreal. Now to save down this as a packed mask, you have to go to the texture set settings and with this plus icon, add 3 new users. User 0, User 1, User 2. With this cogwheel, change them to linear 8-bit color. Once you do this, it will probably take some time to synchronize this to all your materials depending on the complexity of the project. Okay, it's finished and now you will see these 3 new tabs labeled separately as user 0, 1 and 2. By default, none of them will be activated anywhere, which is just what we want. You can see if I scrub through these channels, there is nothing on them right now. The best practice would be to duplicate your needed mask if you already have them and paste it to the top. If you're creating it from scratch, you just add a new layer on top. I click on this new one and activate user 0 and delete all the base materials or smart materials you had. If you don't, it will not work. So let's only activate the user 0 here. And the color should be set to 1, aka white. Now if I check the user 0 layer up here, we already have the mask here. Let's do the same now, but use user 1 here and user 2 here. You can add color to visualize it to yourself, but it's not necessary at all. You can have channels activated, just make sure no actual materials used, like a smart material or base material. So this is how it will look. So basically the user 0 will be the red mask, user 1 will be the green mask, and user 2 will be the blue mask. Double check here if all of them are working. Seems good, but we are not finished yet. We need one more fill layer below these 3, which will be the base. Activate all these 3 and set all of them to 0, aka black. And we can add the black material just to see how the whole texture will look like. Now let's bake this texture under the output templates. This is what we will create. So with the plus icon, add a new preset, name something like RGB mask export, and click on this and fill up the channels. Get the user 0, place it into the red, make sure it's on gray channel, user 1 to the green channel as gray channel, user 2 to the blue channel as gray channel. In the global settings under the output template, select the new recreated preset, go to the material, I turn off all these UDIMs, I only need my head UDIM, select a folder and export it out. Now in Blender, if I check it, all of them is working as it should. Now in this project, I already have set it up all the masks I will need. So I have a foundation with concealer. I have 3 variations of blushes. You can see each variation is on a different user channel. You barely see it, but this eye makeup is a solo makeup, meaning it's only baked on its own texture, which only has this one simple red channel. And I have few additional already painted unique shapes for the other variations. Unfortunately, you cannot batch export all of them at once, so you have to do each one by one like I showed you before, and hide every other mask you created during the export. And that's about it for the masking. Now let's see finally how you can implement this whole thing to your character. After downloading it from Gumroad, you have to unzip to a hard drive or a folder, where you will find it. I simply put it into my D drive. Now in your Blender project, go to Edit, Preferences, and here at the file path, click on the plus icon and add the folder's location. Go into the Masters and Blender, then hit Add Asset Library. Now we will be able to access this at any project. Split the window and go to the Asset Browser, and now you should see this makeup folder here. If you go inside, you will find the material. Most of you probably already have a skin material, obviously, just like I do here. And it's already quite complex setup because of the wrinkle normals, subsurface height and wrinkle diffuse and so on. And obviously we don't want to lose anything when we replace it with a new material. Because if I would just drag and drop this to the face, it will simply just replace my existing material. We can see the node group already here with the base setup as well. You could just simply add your stuff to these placeholders, or we can be lazy and add a new material, select my original face material, and simply select all this, copy, and paste it here. Delete these placeholders, and we just need to simply reconnect the slots logically. I have an ambient occlusion setup here, so in every setup, AO is the last node you need. So I'm going to connect my wrinkle setup output, which in your case probably a simple base color. I have my AO, rough, and metallic packed into one simple texture. And the roughness is my green channel, so I'm going to plug it into the roughness input of the makeup node, and my metallic to the metallic. You can totally skip this if you don't have metallic map. You can just leave it empty. And I just plug back my subsurface and normal, place the AO like so, and also use my spec map, which is just an inverted roughness. If you scroll down here, you should see the custom properties on this material. But we don't want to keep this name. I want my original material name. So to do that, I'm just going to rename this with a random suffix and press this X button. And with the minus, I remove the empty slot. Now I can just simply rewrite it to whatever I want. Let me make some space here and get inside the node group. So it has 4 different groups inside, all named logically, with some minimal comments here and there. Like this one up here, where I mentioned that you can simply just deattach any unneeded group if you don't need them, and it's still going to work. For example, you only want the eye makeup and the lipstick, then you just simply can delete the groups, or better solution is to simply ignore it. Let's get inside the first one, which is the foundation and concealer. You will see here all the values that are exposed in the custom properties for this section, but you don't have to do anything with them. The only thing you need from each group is the green marked image inputs. This map inputs uses the red channel as the foundation mask and the green channel as the concealer mask, which are usually located below the eyes, this thingy. Parameter values below are driven by drivers, which makes them bound to the changes in the custom property. I also made a note about it here. Don't confuse yourself with it. These prefixes like A1, A2, B, C, D, they are only there to make sure the proper ordering in the tab. First letter tells the group, and with the numbers I just made sure that the hierarchy is logically placed. There is a sort priority option for that in Unreal, but unfortunately we don't have that here. So I had to do this way. Back to the drivers. As you can see, if I toggle this on and off, it changes the values inside the material accordingly. Just like, for example, the intensity as well. And with that, we get to the point to understand what was that material renaming practice I did, and why we can just copy and paste the node group to our already existing material. So for that, let me open up the driver editor. The foundation group is selected, so we can see all the drivers of it. You can see at the prop that the driver requires a material name to work properly, because the drivers are bound to this exact material. Whatever you will rename the master material, this will be automatically updated here in all the drivers. So it's really important to use my method, otherwise you will break the connection. On the other hand, you will probably won't receive any of the custom properties in the tab if you just copy and paste the group somewhere. So you will only able to manipulate it from inside the shader editor, so just do it like I did and you will be good to go. Here with the little cogwheel you can check how these things set it up, like this one is set to a boolean, so it's true or false scenario. The color is a bit more complicated one. The intensity, for example, is a float with minimum and maximum range that is clamped between 0 and 1, so it blocks you from going above or below these values. I show you this because perhaps you want to go above and beyond these values, so if you want to, you can change that here. So they are basically working on the same logic, just like floats and booleans here. The only exception is the eye makeup picker, which is an integer. Currently the total mask is set to 6, from 0 to 5, since in this case 0 counts as the first number, but more about it later. So basically you can change all this if you want to, but at its core the only thing you need to do here is to add a simple mask. You can also check this if you are interested, but this is just the masking logic. More or less I'm using here the same exact logic just as at the wrinkle maps tutorial. So I'm not going into that. As I said, you can check the video if you want to know these things in depth. Let's exit this group and head to the next one, which is the blush. So here, exact same thing. Just look for the image texture input and get your mask. This uses all 3 channels. For me, each of them contains one unique looking blush makeup. As always, you can just simply use 1 or 2 channels. You don't need to use all 3, and you don't have to unconnect anything. Just simply use the corresponding makeup booleans right here. A is the red mask, B is the green, C is the blue. Okay, let's head to the next section, which is the eye makeup. Same exact thing, but with a lot more possibilities. As every section, this one also have an on-off switch like this. The difference compared to the others is the eye makeup picker, which I showed you earlier is an integer, which means it doesn't range like a float. Instead, it's stepping by the amount of 1, and ranges between 0 and 5. That means you can only pick between whole numbers like this. You can also change the maximum value, which I will talk about in a minute. Another difference is that I have another group here, which acts as an array, similarly like I handled it in Unreal. Array is a data of structures that holds multiple textures in this case. So let's get inside. Let me make some space here. I also have a note here for the ones that rushed simply to the download. Technically speaking, this works just a little bit differently than the others, but the core point to you is still the simple texture mask inputs. Here you can expand the function infinitely using the same logic and go all the way down to the end of eternity. But I think a total of 6 is more than enough, which is currently set. But if you want to add more, just make sure you update the property as well to ensure that the picker can reach that number. I'm going to talk about this more in a few minutes when I show this in action. But let's quickly check the lipstick, which is quite simple. You have here the same functions and an on-off switch, obviously. Roughness change, metallic change, transparency aka intensity, and the texture mask, obviously. which in this case simply samples the red channel. Or if you have simple black and white image or something, you can just plug it directly there and skip the separate. Just a side note, if you have any problems with the drivers not working, select all the nodes and make sure your driver's material prop material name is matching everywhere. If for some reason you need to reselect the material, it can take maximum of 2 minutes to set them, but if you followed me, you should not have that problem at all. Now let's see all this in action. I will import my mask. The higher the resolution, the better the result, obviously. Change this to non-color. And now if I use this, we can see it's working. Typically the foundation and concealer are applied together. That's why it has one single on-off switch. But we can control the intensity of them separately. So we can still manage to hide each or one of them. We can change the color separately as well as the roughness. Moving on. Let's add the blush mask, non-color again. I will turn it on with the on-off switch. And as I said, A is the red mask, B is the green, and C is the blue. So let's turn on the red mask. Also, you can turn all of them on at once if you, for example, just sampled one complete blush makeup to 3 separate parts, like an eye makeup. My C blush is turned out kinda lame, but you get the point. Let me unhide this outline. I choose the A version, for example. You can always change the maximum float if needed here, as I mentioned before, but it's totally fine like this. I can increase the intensity at the others, change the color, roughness if you want to, and obviously you can simply deactivate or reactivate any part of the makeup at any time. Okay, let's see the eye makeup. The image inputs are logically named and ordered, so let's import the first one. Here is all my textures. It ranges from complex 3-channeled maps to 2-channeled maps and 1-channel map. I already named them how I want it, so I will just import my first one and set it to non-color. You can see if I try to adjust the eye picker, nothing will change until I tick it on with the switch. So let's turn it on, and now it's already here. And if you just want one makeup, you can totally ignore the other inputs. If I change this to 1 or the others, you can see that it samples nothing. So since this is a 3-channel mask, I can use all the 3 color functions. You can see from the colors that my mask indeed consists of 3 parts, and masking worked properly. So now I can start manipulating the values for each if I want to. Primary color is the red mask, secondary color is the green mask, and the tertiary color is the blue mask. We can basically manipulate everything we would need for an eye makeup. You can also control the overall transparency, aka intensity of the makeup. But the cool thing is, what I really like is the color changing, which really helps a lot to quickly visualize different looks on your character. Now I will just import all of the other masks I have. Okay, it's done. I filled up all of it. And now I can simply scrub through all of them, change every value that I want dynamically. For example, I want to give back her original makeup, which was like this. I can totally do that. Now let's do the lipstick as well. Add the image input, turn on the lipstick, and we can manipulate it right away. Roughness or metallic or transparency, and obviously the color as well. And it's already looking cool. But I like this dark one, so you know me. Now let's get back to the eye makeup, and I will show you how you can paint complete makeups dynamically. So I will use the same exact thing I showed you in the beginning. I just create the 3 maps, non-color as always, get the separate color, plug them up like so, and combine them like so. Open a UV editor and save these new images down. Let's change this to 0, and let's plug this right here. And we want this first mix color and plug it directly to the end. Now let's split this window. We can close this, go to texture paint, and select the first mask, which is red. And now if I paint with red, we can see that the primary color is getting visible. As always with black, you can erase it. Use the green mask with the full green, and let's paint. Same with the blue. For example, here, like so. And we can also blur it out. We can change the colors instantly to check the look. Change the roughness or metallic. Change other colors and so on. You can also simply just use 2 channels if you want to. For example, simply unplug this from here. And we don't want a white value, so we unplug this one as well. And make sure the value is 0 there. And now the node only samples this 2 color. And you can do the same at the foundation or any other part. Let me show you. So I just copy this image texture, go to the lipstick, paste it and change it like so. I switch to the red mask here, I delete all this and start painting on the lips. That's also a cool thing if you want to do that way. Now on how to add more mask to the eye makeups, make some space here. Let's add an image texture and duplicate this mix color. Copy this greater than node, and if you look inside of them, they are always increasing by 1. And this is the logic you should follow. So I type here 5, close them back in, get this and plug it here. We can close this as well. What we connected here is connected to the eye makeup picker, which means we will have to change it. But let's finish the node. So let's connect this to the factor and this to the end. Now update the property to 6. And now we are working with a total of 7 variations of masks. Obviously I have no image input, so nothing shows, but this is how you can increase the number of masks. If anyone is curious, I will just show you that it does not screws up the wrinkle diffuse or anything at all. And even though it's currently using a lot of wrinkle maps, I can still manipulate the makeups however I like them. You can combine or change the logics however you like them, but this setup currently is aligned with the Unreal setup to be able to reach the same result in both platforms. So that's about it for the Blender part. Now let's see the Unreal one. Okay, now I'm in an empty new 5.6 project. As you can see, nothing is here, just the base content. To use an UE asset, find your Unreal project folder. It should look like this. After downloading and unzipping the master material from Gumroad, you will find these 2 folders. Go to the content. In your project folder, also go to the content and simply copy this folder with Ctrl+C and paste it here with Ctrl+V. And if I switch back to Unreal, I can immediately see the folder is here without even restarting. And this is the content you should see. You should see all the placeholder textures as well beside the material. So let's open up the material and see what's inside. I will dock it up here. It's going to look intimidating at first, but don't worry. At its core, it's exactly the same thing, just like in Blender. You just simply need to place textures and that's it. The reason this is not fully grouped, like the Blender one, because organizing nodes in Unreal is way better, thanks to the named rewrote nodes. Trust me, you don't want to see the Blender one without groups.
What have I done?
Also, you can visually see everything way better and understand it and decide yourself from what you want to create functions or groups from. Or perhaps you just want to learn from it. Personally, I just hate getting into groups, into functions and check what's going on. I much prefer a properly placed, visually understandable and followable node map like I did here. But maybe that's just me. I wrote some notes as well here, but I'm going through everything fast as possible. Let's start from the beginning. So here is where everything starts, your simple base inputs. To fully understand the material, you will have to understand the concept of rewrote nodes, which I really wish would be in Blender as well. So this is a named rewrote. A rewrote node is just for keeping your material graph tidy. It helps you move wires around neatly, but it doesn't change how your material looks. Look at this example. Here I wanted to plug in my base color, so instead of plug it from the original base color, I use this rewrote node. If I would do this and plug this here, it would result exactly the same thing. So with this, I can connect my base color here right away, instead of creating a complete mess of spaghetti noodles out of the material graph. This is how I basically store all the other outputs as well. I use a pegged texture as source and store these outputs like AO, rough, spec, metallic. Obviously, all of these can come from a separate texture as well, or a scalar parameter. It depends how your material is set it up, but I recommend a pegged texture for optimization. If you're not familiar with master materials, think of them as templates for your materials. You make one main setup and then create variations from it really quickly. That's why they have all these placeholder textures right here. So what you would typically do is just simply create a material instance out of this and simply place your maps inside, and that would be it. But considering every setup is different, you might change something here and there. But there are a few key factors you have to keep in mind, like this sampler source. This should set to wrap, especially if you're working with a ton of texture samples. This allows you to have a lot of texture samples without any issue. As you can see, all of them are set to that. And in the case of grayscales, the type is even set to linear color. I did not place these 3 textures to any group, because most probably you already did. So I didn't want to interfere with any of that. Also, here is a subsurface value, also sampled, because this Unreal setup contains subsurface tweaks as well, unlike Blender. For Blender, I thought that's just way too much. But you have to keep in mind that I'm not using all the reroutes for the makeup. These 4 nodes are the only ones that are used by the makeup setup. And here this set material attributes just packs all your material info into one wire. Super useful for keeping big graphs tidy like this, and will also help with an easier on-off switch at the end, which I will show you in a second. You know, I could just go and plug this directly to here and it would be exactly the same. But later in the graph, then I would have to break the attribute, which makes no sense here, but I will show you how to break attributes work at the Metahumans, then you will understand it easily. And here you can see that the finished and assembled makeup is already packed into one material attribute, aka to one simple wire. So all this can be reached through one simple node. And here at the final setup, you can see the basic setup, what I showed you up there, and the full makeup here, which is running through a simple switch node, which is controlled by a bool value that can be reached through a material instance. Let me show you. So I create a material instance out of this, open it up and place it here. And here you can see that the value is exposed here as well. By default it turned off, but here in the instance it can be turned on, and now you have all the other stuff become visible. And now you can reach all the other stuff as well. And on what is visible and reachable is determined by these inputs. Let's turn this off for now and save all. Here at the very end you can see it connected to the final material output like so, and the final input is set to material attributes here. You can see all the other inputs of mine is added here at the very end as well, which doesn't contribute to the makeup. Also in the set attribute, you can always add and remove slots to your specific needs. Now let's see some other important notes. In the first section, I mentioned the dependency and the optimization, which basically how you set up your textures and texture input if you perhaps changed it. For example, the mask input at the foundation. First, change your textures compression to mask no sRGB. To do that, you have to go into the texture itself. And here you will see the compression settings, and this is what you should set. The sampler type is set to mask for you by default. And also, as I mentioned, the source is set to wrap. This last two won't change unless you change it, but I wanted to mention it just in case. And it's the same principle for all the texture inputs here at the makeup. Now the other note here gives you a clear example on how to isolate specific parts. For example, you only need the eye makeup. Basically, you have to change the green marked parts. So this blush diffuse to the original base diffuse. Same here, same goes for the roughness. And for set material attribute, you have to change these to these specific endings. Now let's see this whole thing from the top. So first obviously is the foundation. So we have a mask input, which is clearly stated which channel responsible for what. We have a color intensity and an on-off toggle as always, a foundation roughness, and you have an option here, which is if you want to control the foundation and a concealer roughness together, which is ideal, you have to switch this parameter to this pin and connect it straight to the V socket here. For the concealer, again, we have a color here, intensity and roughness. Again, just a reminder, these are just named reroutes. Don't confuse yourself with it. So if I didn't use this reroute function, then this would simply be connected to here. And everywhere you see these reroutes, it just helps avoid this spaghetti noodle effect. If that's still perhaps confusing, imagine this whole thing without reroutes is going down like a snake. Now on to the blush. We can see again the mask input where again I stated the obvious, but let's pull the instance here, turn it on and open these up. So the foundation I already showed and I talked about the values that are exposed to the instance. If I drop down the blush, you can see all the imported values here, like the blush A, B, C. And as always, in the instance, it starts with an on-off toggle, the intensity and the roughness. And we arrive to the eye makeup. If I drop down this, we have the same stuff like in Blender, so a lot more values than the others. So again, just like in Blender, there is an eye picker option. And I stated here, you should set the slider according to the total number of masks in the array. Currently, it's set to 5, which means a total of 6 masks, but you can always change that. Now here is the mask array. This is the place where we sample all of our eye makeup mask. If you open this up and scroll all the way down, you will see these source textures. Currently, all of them are using a simple placeholder, but here you can place all your textures one by one. It's a really great way to store multiple textures at once. And again, with reroutes, I just simply sample each channel color here. Here I left you an eye makeup roughness node that I unconnected. If you connect this to here, you can control the complete eye makeup roughness with just one slider. But for more variety and flexibility, currently it's designed and sampled individually. You can control each channel roughness separately. You can see all these roughness parameter values here in the instance, logically placed. So if you want to, you can use that simple one as well. If you do, you might want to change that sort priority because that will determine the place in the hierarchy in the instance, but that's just visual stuff. Okay, again, usually an on-off toggle is here. And what do we have here? Yes, the meta-ness. So the meta-ness again is sampled by each individual channels. But with the same logic, like at the roughness, you can create a scalar parameter and make it to one simple control if you want to. Lipstick again is kind of simple. We have the mask input. It's currently sampled the complete RGB. In reality, it should be just a red, but perhaps a lot of you just created the black and white mask instead of the red masking that I showed. But keep in mind, depending on your mask, this might need to be changed to sample red, green, or blue channel. Okay, so we have a color here and the intensity, aka transparency. A roughness, the usual toggle switch, and we have some meta-ness as well. Again, in the instance, all these parameters are available. And these three are the very main final outputs of the complete masking, which I showed in the beginning here. So we have only left out the scatter. This is just an extra addition. So we have the base subsurface as beginning. We have control over the foundation scatter, lipstick, and eye makeup. I don't really think anyone would tweak this, but just in case, it's there. So that results the final input for the full makeup material attribute. And with that, we reach to the end. And that's about it technically. Now let's see how we can integrate this into an existing material. Now I am in my 5.6 Raven project and I already copied the master material here as well. I have a lot of things in the project as you can see. So let's go ahead and find the imported texture masks of mine. And I have all the eye mask here as well. Here are my materials and let's check into my main material. As you can see, I have a normal material output currently with a subsurface profile. I have a pegged texture for roughness, AO, metallic. I have a wrinkle diffuse system and the normal one, and the subsurface value, all organized and placed into groups for better visibility in the instance. So this is where we left off. Those who follow along might perhaps saw that special group here. That one will be a different tutorial for a Witcher style eye effect. Anyway, let's open the instance which my character actually use. We can see a lot of things here are in groups nicely, as I said. So groups can be really effective. I wanted to show you this so you can see we not just using a simple color input. I already have a complex material shader set it up here, and this is where we are going to integrate this makeup system as well. You will see at the Metahumans as well, no matter how complex is the material, you can still integrate this. Okay, let's go back to the textures. Open one up. You can see that there is no alpha here. This is what you should see if you followed along with the masking in Blender or in Substance. When you import your textures to Unreal, it automatically sets these compression settings. But in the case of mask, it's not right. This is where we should change it to mask no sRGB, as I showed earlier. You can also change the texture group from world to character for organizing, but on its own, it doesn't matter. It's not going to affect anything. For this to do anything, you will need to rewrite quite a few things. What can be important though, if you use a low quality texture like a 1K, you can change this to sharpen 4 or higher to receive a better result. But I use the high resolution one, so I'm good to go now. I save it down. To batch change textures, select all of them, right click and start typing matrix and hit edit section in property matrix. And here we can easily manage multiple textures. First you have to make sure in case of mask that it's not sRGB, so it should look like mine. You can see these already changed by me to mask no sRGB. And I will also need to change these as well, but I want to show you how you can create an array for eye makeups from scratch. You don't have to do this, I just show you this. In case you missed in the master material, this is what I'm talking about. To create one, right click and look for an array. Texture to the array. I give it some name, dock it up here, and change this to mask no sRGB. Go down and I start adding source textures with the plus icon. Unreal is whining because there is no inputs yet, so from here I can drag and drop my selected textures. And this is what we get. Don't worry if you don't see all of your stuffs on individual layers, it's perfectly normal. Now I can save it and close it. Now for the textures again, before I do anything, I have to make sure they are set correctly to mask no sRGB. I will edit all of them at once, untick sRGB, select all and change all to mask no sRGB. save it, and check this as well. Unlike Blender, we can simply just copy all these nodes and place it to our own material into some empty space. I pull all these up here. First thing I do, I set the output to use material attributes and drag it all the way to the end. The material output from the master won't be copied, by the way, since we already had an output node here in the material, so don't worry about that. And now I just connect this up. Let's pull this closer and simply just reconnect them logically. I could use this as well if I wanted to, but I already have my own parameters here, so I don't need them, so I can just delete them. I just connect them up logically. Delete this one as well. Technically for me subsurface is the same, so I don't need to reconnect. But for demonstration, let's just do that and delete the original one. I pull the normal all the way down and connect it up again to my normal input. And delete this. Now everything should work properly. And now you can either replace your textures here or in the instance right away after you save down the material. Everything including in and off switch, everything should be visible in the instance, so I can close this now. As well as the master makeup. And as I said, we can see it. It's already here. And here at the mask, you can go ahead and simply drag and drop your texture mask. Let's do the same for this one as well. At the array, you can either open it up and place your textures there, or since I already did the 2D array, I can just simply drag and drop that one here. And I just drop the lipstick mask as well. Here in the preview, we can already see this is working. Now there is one thing that is important. Unlike Blender, this is not strictly hard-coded, meaning you can go out of bounds in a lot of cases. I didn't want to hard-code clamp everything, since your mask can be totally different from mine. Maybe it's way more lighter or anything, and you probably will create a UI anyway to this, where the character enters a makeup place or something, and there you can clamp it as well. But if you want to, you can just go into the material, and for example, this blush A, you can just set the max slider to 1, save it, and now its only ranges between 0 and 1. The main toggles are obviously clamped, since it's either true or false, but you can see that the roughness, for example, is not clamped between 0 and 1. But you can change these things under seconds if you want to. Now let's untick that, exit the material, and let's see this in action. I'll just place her in a good position. And now let's place it beside her. Turn the makeup on and let's play with it. You can see we can easily manipulate now everything. And like I said, not everything is clamped, but if you keep it between 0 and 1, it will be totally fine as well. We see the roughness change as well. We can add the concealer as well, change the color. We can reset each parameter to its original if you want to. Add the blush. Change the intensity, maybe like so, or use different blushes. Let's turn on the eye makeup. The picker basically the same, just like in Blender, only it's a float here, which acts as an integer. Let's get her original look back. So it's this mask. This was silverish. This was purplish, like so. Or maybe like so. Get her a lipstick. Again, we can change however we want to. We can go crazy with this. But it's much more better this way. Let's turn this black. Let's remove some. Let's add some. Or we can even reduce it fully. And basically that's it. I can go back and keep changing if I wanted to, but for a custom character, that's perfectly fine. And since we are in Unreal, we can't ignore Metahumans. So let's see how to implement it to there. Now I'm in a 5.6 project with my custom Metahuman every from my Metahuman tutorial. Here I already have the copied master material to the content. As you can see, first thing you need to do is either here in the blueprint, look for the face and open the mesh, or directly here at the Metahumans tab. Open it up and look for this material. Open it up. Let's dock it up here. Go all the way down and click on this. Open this up. Again, let's go down and open this one. This is the original baked MetaHuman shader if you chose the optimized one. We can see a lot of things here. This is the final material setup here as well, as you can see. It's already using attributes, so we don't need to change here anything. We don't have to change nothing here as well. What's important to us is here at the beginning, especially this live input, which is structure up all the base textures to a material attribute, just like our makeup master. I open this function to show you. So as you can see, basically everything starts here. It samples exactly like our makeup. And these are the stuff we need. And we basically need to expose just the pins and not the reroutes. I will close this down, go to an empty space, select all this again, and just paste it. So we don't want to dismantle this function to reach the reroutes because we only need the pins. But what we can do is we can break this material attribute output to reach all those pins. And this material output reroute has a reroute here, which is exactly what we need. So let's copy it and paste it here. And now we want to break this material attribute to expose the pins. Pull on a string and look for a break material attribute. Now we have all the necessary textures in reach. Now we just simply need to connect them up logically, and only the ones we need. You can always go back and peek into this. I check if there is a scatter, and it's on opacity as it should, so let's connect this like so. And now we can get rid of these. Let's pull this a bit closer. Now this initial setup is actually no longer needed here, because we already have this base setup, but the name here in the MetaHuman graph is baked input MA. So we can totally get rid of this, and this will be our initial setup. Now that's done, let's pull all this from the end. And as you can see, since I deleted the base setup, the reroute is no longer valid. But as I said, we don't need it because we have it under a different name here. But keep the assembled makeup, we definitely need that. But we need to modify the final setup. Let's pull it up here to see it better. Or maybe rearrange it like so. Now what we need is only the first part, and we need to place it here. We don't need to do anything else since the others are already set it up by default in this shader. We just need to disconnect this, move it all the way up here, rearrange the bit, and connect this to the false and this to here. We can delete this now and save everything. We don't need to change anything here, but we can already see the makeup is there. We can close this one as well. Let's place this beside the mesh and let's tick in makeup. Now obviously we will need masks. I don't have any custom mask right now, but the MetaHuman creator does, and we are going to borrow that. For that, up here I look for foundation, drag and drop it here, and now we can see it's already working. And we can right away manipulate it. Change the color, activate the concealer makeup, change the color. We can also see it here right away. We can also look for a blush mask. Unfortunately, it's a separated one, so I can only show one at a time. But let's use this. We can check on what channel it samples. It's on all, so we can use any of it. Don't forget that it is not clamped, so be reasonable. Let's use some low value like so. I use the eye makeup now, and because of the placeholder, it's going to give weird results, but that's meant to be changed, so let's do that. Look for an eye makeup. Luckily, MetaHuman has a lot, so let's open this array and let's drag and drop them one by one. Save it, and we can see it's working fine. Now we can pick new makeups, but obviously you should save down your MetaHuman without makeup in the beginning. Let's change this like so it gets some dark gothic stuff. You can change this to metallic. Let's go to the lipstick and turn it on and look for the lips mask. There should be a few, and it's working as it should. Change the color to your liking, make it more metallic or rough, maybe like so, seems good. You can mess around it all day long. Let's change this to black, for example. Looks cool. Now that's about it for this long tutorial. I plan to expand this in the future into an actual Blender add-on with a dynamic painting setup and a few awesome features like presets for different types of characters such as Metahumans, desk characters, and CC4 and 5 characters. If that's something you are interested in, let me know in the comments. Or if you have any ideas for features you would like to see in the add-on, feel free to share them too. And if you would like to collaborate, you can mention that in the comments as well, or reach out using the contact info in my channel description. But if this doesn't get much traction, I will probably just leave it as is for now. Again, the download link is in the description. Don't forget to rate the product, and if you'd like to support the project, a small donation would be really appreciated. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I will try to answer them as soon as possible. Hope this will help you guys out, and as always, thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.